Patch me through to the United Nations Security Secret Meeting Room.
Hi, I'm Hal. I'm the world's most advanced pediatric patient simulator. I help healthcare students and professionals improve their skills in pediatric care through immersive simulation learning experiences.
Welcome to the VCU ACE Returning to School with COVID-19 video series. The topic for this video is physical distancing. But you may be asking, just what is physical distancing? What does it mean? And why is it so important right now? Physical distancing is just a way to slow down the spread of COVID-19. It's a way for us to use the space between us as a safe zone. Physical distancing just means that when you stand around 6 feet away from others, you can do your part to keep your school and your community healthy. Physical distancing means that you try and stay around 6 feet away from others. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to stay 6 feet away from your family when you are at home. But when you leave your house right now, it's important to try and use physical distancing as much as you can. Keeping 6 feet between you and another person would look like this picture. Be sure to check the floor and look for reminders. When you are outside, there's plenty of room for everyone, so it's usually pretty easy to stay 6 feet away from other people. But staying 6 feet apart when you are in a busy school or classroom can be much harder. Or at the nurse's office, you'll want to wear a mask to help slow the spread of COVID-19. You'll want to wear a mask when you can't stand 6 feet apart.
Our teachers might look funny when we go back to school. They'll have to wear a mask or shield because that is the rule. And you might find it funny when we go back to school. You'll have to wear a mask or shield so you'll look funny too. When we go back to school, a lot of things will change. We'll all look a bit different, the classroom rearranged. When we go back to school, some things will stay the same, like how we can have fun and learn, so you'll be glad you came. When we go back to school, this is now the case. We'll have to sit quite far apart and give each other space. They'll take your temperature and sanitize your hands. It may seem a bit strange, but you must. It may seem a bit strange, but you must listen. But you must listen. But you must listen. You must listen to the plan.
It is recommended that you wash for at least 20 seconds. If you don't think your hands are really dirty, you can use something like a hand sanitizer to help keep them clean. Just because we're social distancing doesn't mean we have to be rude. You can still greet other people. Safe greetings include a wave, a nod, or a bow. The corona pandemic is a challenging time for all of us. Our routines have been disrupted. During this shelter in place, it is not required that you stay inside all the time. You can go for a walk, ride your bike, or even dribble the basketball by yourself, all by yourself, all by yourself, all by yourself. While you're inside most of the time, all by yourself. You can get creative, all by yourself. You can play with your dog, all by yourself. You can play video games, all by yourself. And you can do things to stay social, all by yourself, such as virtual socializing, all by yourself. You can chat, all by yourself, and text with your friends, all by yourself, or even play online games, all by yourself. I have found lots of good things online to help me understand social distancing. These are some of my favorites. These are some of my favorites. These are some of my favorites. These are some of my favorites.
When students return to on-campus instruction this year, GP Middle School will begin using a pod system to help ensure the safety of all students and staff. Students will be assigned to a pod prior to their first day of on-campus instruction. In these pods, using district technology, students will complete work for their core classes and some of their electives. Upon arrival at the school, GP Middle School students will be dropped off and use the stripes on the concrete to maintain social distancing while they wait to be screened at the front door. After being screened, students will walk on the middle red lines to their assigned spot in the hallway where they will wait until school starts. At that time, an adult will tell you when to go to class. Rather than have students rotate from class to class, as has been the norm in past years, teachers will instead rotate between these student pods to provide supervision and instruction. This will minimize the amount of interpersonal contact occurring each day. Students will be allowed to leave their pods in order to attend specific electives like band that depend upon in-person rehearsal or specialized technology. When moving through the halls, students should only walk on the right-hand side of the hallway to help control the flow of traffic. You still must maintain a distance of 6 feet from other students while walking. When students wish to use the restroom, the student's teacher will enter the student's name and destination into our online tracking form. Each pod will be assigned to a particular restroom. Students should make their way to the restroom by walking on the right-hand side of the hallway. When they arrive, they should let the staff member who is outside the restroom know that they're there, and they will record the information in the online tracking form. When it is their turn to use the restroom, the staff member will let them in. When they leave the restroom, the staff member will enter the student's name into the online tracker, and the student should return to the class by walking on the right-hand side of the hallway. When the students enter the classroom teacher will update the online tracker. During lunch, students will eat in the classroom. Students will have their lunch brought to them by campus staff. 2 outside mask breaks during the morning and 2 mask breaks in the afternoon. Students will need to request this break from their classroom teacher and walk to the front doors of the building, utilizing the right-hand side of the hallway. During your outside break, you may walk without your mask on the path that will be laid out for you by our staff members. Students are still expected to maintain social distancing. At all times, students and staff should maintain safe distance and wear appropriate safety equipment. As always, our highest priority
transmission.
Solitary confinement is toxic to mental function. There is a particular illness that results from being in solitary confinement. It's a delirium. It's a neuropsychiatric, almost a medical, a neurologic disease.
It's like something from a Hollywood horror movie. A hospital where patients are given massive doses of drugs like LSD, intensive shock therapy, put to sleep for months at a time.
I was reduced to a baby and wearing diapers and being fed and, you know, I can't imagine it. I don't remember that, thank goodness, because it would haunt me in my dreams.
But at Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute, the nightmare was all too real. And incredibly, what happened there was secretly supported by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and the Canadian government.
It just doesn't make sense that you can take a mother away from her children and ruin her life and that other people won't be affected too.
I'm Bob McEwen. On this Fifth Estate, we investigate what the Government of Canada kept hidden for decades and what they're still trying to hide. It was 1964, and 5-year-old Diane McIntosh couldn't wait when her father said they were going for a drive to visit her mother, who was in the hospital.
My dad used to let me sit on his knee and steer the car, and so that was play.
On each visit, their car would turn onto the long drive leading through the hospital grounds to the Allen Memorial Institute at McGill University in Montreal, a psychiatric facility with the best reputation in the country. More than half a century later, Diane still remembers what she saw then, as if it were yesterday. Because when they got to the hospital door, her enthusiasm turned to horror.
When we got there, the place was just like a scene from One Flew Out of the Cuckoo's Nest. There were people banging their heads on the walls and droning, and my mother was sitting there completely drugged up. And even as a child, I knew that she wasn't right.
What they didn't know at the time was that her mother, Hélène McIntosh, and hundreds of others like her were unwitting guinea pigs in brutal psychiatric experiments that took place at the Allen Institute under the code name MK Ultra. Massive drug regimens, enforced prolonged sleep, intensive electroshock, largely funded by the Canadian government and the American CIA. No consent was ever asked from the patients, and no explanation of the experiments was ever given to them. The MK Ultra brainwashing project got its start in the early days of the Cold War, when some Canadian and American soldiers returning from the conflict in Korea expressed sympathy for their communist enemies. At a time of paranoia about the so-called Red Menace, the Americans believed the Soviets and Chinese might well have devised an effective brainwashing method, and the CIA was determined to crack it, as ex-CIA officer John Gittinger told the Fifth Estate in 1980.
So we were charged with rather an elaborate attempt to try to find out chemical, psychological, any kind of means that people could use to influence the behavior of the people.
But the CIA knew it could be politically difficult to fund brainwashing directly, so it set up a front company to do it, euphemistically called the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology.
These are the days and hours are the occasions.
And they found a prominent scholar doing related research in Montreal, the renowned psychiatrist Dr. Ewan Cameron, co-founder of the World Psychiatric Association. Those who worked with Cameron called him domineering, and more.
He was an authoritarian, ruthless, power-hungry, nervous, tense, angry man. Not very nice.
And it is his mind, no less, which may destroy mankind.
Over the years, in addition to CIA funding, Dr. Cameron received Canadian government research grants worth well over $4 million today for experiments on what was called psychic driving and depatterning, attempts to erase negative memories from the human mind and replace them with new, positive ones. So it was that in 1962, a 23-year-old mother of two, Hélène McIntosh, was referred to Ewan Cameron for what she thought would be a time out from the pressures of motherhood and marriage.
They promised me that I would get rested. I was told that I would be looked after in the hospital.
Depressed after the birth of her second child, her GP recommended Dr. Cameron. No one told her she would be part of a radical science project with a full menu of experimental treatments, shock, drugs like LSD, months of induced sleep with recordings bombarding her subconscious 24/7. After all that, Hélène McIntosh says she effectively became an infant again.
That was hell. It really was. It's something that you can't describe. And when I start talking about it, I start shaking. My body shakes. It's like my body's saying, don't go there.
Today, Hélène has only a few scattered memories of her years at the Allen.
electroshock and a picture of Dr. Cameron, but I do remember him. I remember his voice very clearly.
What do you remember about it?
He sat me in front of a group of medical students or doctors that were doing their residency, and he said, "This woman is hopelessly incurable," and that was it. And he was so cold.
But through all of that, her young daughter Diane, raised by grandparents, lived for those special times when her mother got the chance to spend a few hours with her girls.
I remember when she was able to come out for a visit, and she would be able to come over and tuck me in at my granny's place, and I would just lie there immobile after she left. And when Granny would come in to say goodnight, I'd say, "Don't touch the covers, don't touch the covers, don't change it," because Mom left it this way. And I'd try to sleep all night without moving the covers.
In all, Elaine McIntosh spent 2 years at the Allen Institute. Most of her memories erased like data on a hard drive.
That's you.
Yeah.
Look how dark my hair is. I don't think that's...
Today, at home in British Columbia, much of the McIntosh family album is a mystery to Elaine. Now it's Diane who must guide her mom through the images of the past she no longer remembers.
There's Carolyn. So they're not in order.
Oh, that's me.
That's you, of course.
It is clear that in different ways, both McIntoshes are victims of that secret brainwashing project in Montreal, and they are far from alone. Hundreds of victims passed through these doors in the 1950s and 60s, all with their own horror stories.
I feel like I've been completely used. I feel like my mind has been completely invaded.
Had to be toiletry. I was a vegetable. I had no identity, I had no memory, I'd never existed in the world before.
I had lost all
just
my
like a baby.
in myself. I suffered like hell. My mother had to stay with me all the time. She couldn't leave me 1 hour.
5 decades later, the government of Canada has been more deeply involved in all this than it wants to admit, with new secret settlements, shutting down lawsuits, and gag orders. And as you'll see after the break, it is not something they want you to know about.
The government doesn't seem to do anything. They don't recognize you. It's wrong. It's shameful.
From 1950 until the mid-60s, Montreal's respected psychiatric facility, the Allen Memorial Institute, was the site of secret brainwashing experiments, funded by the CIA under the codename MKUltra, with money from the Canadian government as well. The program would quietly be shut down in 1965. But the truth about what happened there would be protected for another decade and a half longer. Then, in 1980, we were among the first to tell Canadians about it.
The Fifth Estate.
I'm Adrienne Clarkson. Tonight we report on a secret CIA research project carried out in Montreal in which mental patients felt they were used as the CIA's guinea pigs.
They kept you asleep for 23 days. And while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks.
And the Fifth Estate stayed on the story for years to come. From then to now, many of the key questions have remained the same.
The Fifth Estate.
So why was Ottawa so ambiguous when it came to helping some Canadian citizens get compensation from Washington for what they endured in a program that was inspired mostly by American Cold War fears? Well, the answer was simple. The government of Canada was even more deeply involved in the Allen Memorial experiments than the Americans.
Get away! Get off!
Hold him!
After word of the experiments at the Allen Memorial Institute came out, the CBC broadcast a drama entitled The Sleep Room about Dr. Ewan Cameron's mind control treatments. In the absence of visual evidence inside the hospital, It is as close as we can come to how it looked and sounded.
Natalie?
Driving doesn't work. Can you admit that now? You destroyed these people for nothing! You can't just walk away from this, Cameron! It'll come back and it'll ruin you!
Many of them were just sitting there like zombies, and I have a headache. I don't remember anything.
Gina Blasbalg was 15 and in an orphanage when she was sent to the Allen. She got massive drug doses and was kept asleep for months. Fortunately, she never received electroshock therapy, which may explain why she remembers the real Dr. Cameron and his patients.
How did those patients regard, or apparently regard, Dr. Cameron?
Those patients were too far gone. The ones that were not too far gone were terrified of him. We were all terrified to see him around. We didn't want to be near him. I don't think that any patient ever wanted to be close to Dr. Cameron.
When news of Cameron's experiments was revealed, 9 of the Canadian victims filed a lawsuit against the Central Intelligence Agency, alleging they had been unwittingly used in research that was medically improper, even illegal. Plaintiff Velma Orlico of Winnipeg didn't think they stood a chance.
I've often, when I've been alone at home, thought, how can you fight the CIA? Who in heck do you think you are? How can you fight the CIA?
But eventually, in the late 80s, David got a concession from Goliath. The CIA settled with the Canadian patients for about $90,000 apiece. A moral victory, at least. And a few years after that, in the 90s, the Government of Canada announced its own compensation plan. But only for the most seriously injured victims, those who survived the experiments in a childlike state.
You only see what your eyes want to see. How can life be what you want it to be? You're frozen when your heart's not open.
That's enough. This behavior, we're miles beyond a glitch here.
With her coach, Patrick Moratoglu, and still looking unwell. She looked dizzy and disorientated out on court number 1, had the doctor on court for 13 minutes before she played the match, only completed 3 games.
When I was making love to my old boyfriend, I used to think about women sometimes.
Oh, good Lord. I'm sure he was delighted when you told him, because...
We can see that Bill Clinton was nothing more than a puppet to the puppet masters which placed him in the White House. Bill Clinton's demeanor seems to be similar to a person who is under a hypnotic trance.
In every way, and I was
Did
very
you
proud
talk
of
about
him.
Did you talk about vice presidential possibilities with Senator Warren?
how did you with Senator Warren?
Did you talk about vice presidential possibilities with Senator Warren?
Healthcare. We need to make what we've got work really well and improve it and get the costs out of an upward spiral.
Are you connecting? Picasso is dead. Steve Jobs is dead. Walt Disney is dead. Name somebody living that you can name in the same breath as them.
All right, and Connor, can you respond? Say something nice about Jose, please? No? Okay, not happening.
Yeah, it's a difficult title. It's a good, day to die.
But I suppose
yours, it's because you had kind of a good day, and if you would have died, well, so be it. Is that it?
That's right. That's a good explanation. Have a sandwich, and let's go shopping. Die hard.
That would have been your chosen title.
Well, it's about, it makes about as much sense. A good, or maybe there is a good day to die hard.
The moving piece of film and music that is the video for 1-800-273-8255 brought me to tears. The truth is piercing, and the truth is what matters. And the truth is that none of us are alone. It takes great courage to show the vulnerable side of being human. And as long as you never give up on yourself, light will break through the darkness.
There are many ways I can inflict pain on my opponent and put him away.
How will Aldo try to attack Conor?
Okay, well, Aldo's a very fast guy, and these guys have been wanting to get at each other. The big question is, can Aldo even get to Conor McGregor? Somebody that's got the footwork of Conor, the awkward styles, constantly is changing between an orthodox and a southpaw stance. So, if Aldo can come out here and try to...
There are many ways I can inflict.
That's exactly how
you have to have a certain amount of distance between
Yes,
the bodies
exactly.
in your high.
Yes, like they say in Catholic school, leave room for the Holy Ghost. Anyway, there is a lot of memories today, actually. It's a big day in music history.
35 years ago today, Elvis Presley passed away, the king of rock and roll. And as Mark Cohn says in his great song, Walking in Memphis, there's a pretty little thing waiting for the king down.
And I understand the more you stare, the more tired you become and the more you will relax. I want you to just block out any thought processes and sounds and just begin to stare at the light. And of course, if you have to close your eyes, I'm going to simply invite you to take breaths in with me. Understand? Every breath you take and every word I say, and out, and just relax. That's
We're going to let Richard continue his work through the commercial break.
moments, but not yet.
What do you think about the doctor's findings and testimony? Log on to cfnews13.com/chat to voice your opinion. I'm chatting too. We'll try to answer your questions.
So,
I'm sorry. I was in a trance.
I'm sorry, is there someone talking to you?
yes, sorry.
Sorry about that. So I just was wondering
They
how
just
everyone's
came
doing.
in.
Hello, Courtney, have we lost you?
All right. It looks like Courtney doesn't really want to go there with
I think
that
she's
question.
blanking. So I just was wondering
They
how
just
everyone's
came
doing.
in.
Hello, Courtney, have we lost you?
The government also insisted it had no legal or moral obligation to do it.
To many, that system seemed designed not to distribute compensation, but to discourage it. In the end, only 80 of the patients subjected to the brutal psychiatric experiments were approved for federal compensation. Another 250 were denied. And who knows how many more never even knew the compensation program existed. So when the application deadline came and went, it was too late to apply. The government's secret brainwashing program simply faded into the past. Or did it?
And that's a basic explanation of what social distancing is. And I hope you are staying safe. Keep social distancing.
Most Western cultures see the butterfly as elegant, graceful, and full of beauty. It's a symbol usually attributed to life, hope, or remembrance of a loved one. So why is it that the Illuminati frequently use this symbol to mark their subjects of mind control, otherwise known as monarch programming, MKUltra, MK Naomi, or Manchurian candidates? Make no mistake, mind control is a real thing. The CIA programs MKUltra and MK Naomi are declassified programs which ran from 1953 to 1973 and engage in illegal activities of subjecting unwilling participants to drug use, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, verbal and sexual abuse, and other forms of psychological torture to control their minds. And you thought it was only the Nazis. There's a ton of information out there on MKUltra, and there's a wealth of information on the internet about its history. However, we're going to look at the mechanisms of mind control developed by the CIA as still being used in the entertainment industry and how it applies to the symbol of the butterfly. Hey everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. The elite, the Illuminati, controllers, handlers, whatever you want to call them, they always leave symbols in plain sight to mark their work. As you can see from these series of pictures, several celebrities are frequently seen with the monarch butterfly. It is especially occult when you see them place the butterfly over one eye or over the mouth. There are so many instances of this very odd placement of a butterfly that one has to question exactly what meaning they are trying to convey. If you do some searching around the internet, you'll find a very common explanation. Just as the monarch butterfly goes through metamorphosis, these controllers or handlers of these celebrities are using mind control techniques to morph the minds of their subjects. Probably one of the most blatant examples of this is with the celebrity Amanda Bynes. You can see her here in this milk commercial with the butterfly on her nose and the word metamorphosis below. Supposedly, they are saying the milk is the cause of the metamorphosis. However, just with any other MKUltra subject, their mind breaks down from repeated insults. Here you see Amanda, who was a perfectly normal, talented, and strong actor/singer, completely lose her mind, shave half of her head, and post a series of very strange Twitter videos, such as this one where she is twitching and jerking her facial expressions as she poses for a selfie. However, there is a much deeper meaning to the butterfly symbol, and I really don't believe you've seen this anywhere else. At least I haven't. The following quote is attributed to the Dalai Lama. As opposed to the picturesque view of a butterfly that Westerners have, the Dalai Lama says the butterfly is actually a very cold symbol. He says, quote, "The butterfly never meets its mother. It must survive independently and remains a stranger to affection. An animal nurtured by mother's milk, however, is dependent on another for its basic survival. A child who grows up in a cold and detached home environment is similar to the butterfly, in that kindness is sparing. Once an adult, it'll be very difficult for that person to show compassion." The key to what the Dalai Lama said in that quote is that the butterfly is detached from its mother or family. And that's exactly what celebrity handlers try to do: distance the family as far as possible from their target. Here's a story of Billy Ray Cyrus talking about how his family is under attack by Satan, and how Miley's handlers were the main catalyst. He says, over time, something bad would happen in her career, and her handlers would try to get her dad in the picture so they could blame him for his parenting. It happened so much that Billy Ray had enough of it and decided to keep his distance. At this point, her handlers went wild and took total control of Miley. In this news clip, her handlers were, quote, concerned about a missing phone with incriminating pictures of Miley. Billy Ray asked her handlers what was going on, and they said, quote, it was none of his business. He says, I'm dealing with somebody that had only known my daughter for possibly 4 years and I'm her daddy, and they're telling me it's none of my business? From that point on, things just went downhill. He goes on later to say that his and Miley's faith was greatly shaken, and that this was definitely an attack by Satan. Indeed, it definitely is. So not only do we see metamorphosis of a butterfly symbolize MK Ultra modification, or how splitting a subject from their family is much like the independent life of a butterfly. There's also one more symbol. The butterfly on the exterior is very beautiful. However, it's very fragile as well. And this is exactly what these celebrities are. Behind all the professional photos that look like they have it together and are beautiful, their controllers and their handlers, the drug use, or whatever exposures they are going through, easily rip them apart like a frail butterfly's wings. You can see so many celebrities go through complete mental breakdowns after this programming starts to become too much. Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, Miley Cyrus, Amanda Bynes, and the list continues on and on and on. And there's not much else to say except the world is super evil, my friends, but we all know that there is one hope. As much as we hate to see these celebrities promote the Antichrist spirit, we must continually pray for them that they turn back to Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and the Father. Very much like we hope Kanye West is turning back to Yeshua based on all his very peculiar behaviors as of lately.
It's my first Instagram joint, you know what I'm saying, that I did, you know, specifically ever for Instagram, you know what I'm saying, and I wanted to mean something, I wanted to make sense, so I want to give a special shout out to Kanye, you know what I'm saying, let him know that my prayers are with him, my family's prayers are with him, you know, remind him that when God is for you, who could be against you? No one and nothing. Stand strong, brother. Stand strong, brother. Stand strong.
Here and believed here. Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who